So hi again. Good morning. Can you hear me okay? I think you said that you could hear me. Yeah. So good morning. Out my window is actually a tree. You can see how early it is here that the sun is not yet with us. But hopefully by the end of the session, the sun will be out. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. If not, we'll work with it. Yeah, it's early morning. So I just want to thank you for being with me. I see that your name is Emily. What is your first name? And I'm just looking to see what your first name is. And how do you pronounce that? Is it Meow? Is that okay? Hi Meow. I'm Stephanie, and I am someone who is a bit of a nerd about growing my CV. And in fact, I've been approached by a lot of different coaches who have said, you're in your early 30s, your career trajectory looks like someone that is easily a decade or more older. And I've been hearing that consistently throughout my career, and so I wanted to share some of the reflections from this whole process. Some of it is actually things that I did right the first time around, and other things were things that I had to learn the hard way. Essentially, this is a series of 8 questions that you're just going to ask yourself. So while you're listening to this, if you can pull open, say, either a Word doc or just like an open email that you can send to yourself at the end, just something where you can write down notes. If you want to be less technical about it, a pen and paper is absolutely fine as well. So what I'm going to do is I'll turn the camera off for a little while, and then that way we can just focus in on the PowerPoint. And I don't have a sense of awareness about the video, so hold on, I will. Sure, that will be at the end, but I'll give it to you in the chat as well. So the first question to ask yourself, and it sounds like, are you in your early career? So in your mid-20s, perhaps, late 20s? And this is something I'm asking you within the chat window. Yep. So essentially, you want to ask yourself at this stage, what do you want to do next in your career? Where do you want to go? I think this is important because every other subsequent question kind of rests on this. If you don't necessarily know where you want to go, it's generally identifying a field that you want to be in. So in your particular case, do you want to go into wine marketing? Is this something that you would rather go into the viticulture side? So more on the kind of science-based side, more of the agricultural side, the marketing side, business. So there are a lot of different areas within the wine industry that you could go, and media side, yeah. So there are all different kinds of pathways, and it's kind of crucial at this stage to identify where you want to go. And again, I want you to keep this fairly broad at this stage. It's good to identify, say, a specific track that you're interested in, but I will get into why to keep it maybe perhaps a little bit more broad than you intend to go. So the next question to ask yourself is, what areas do you want to be your targets and safety nets? So before I had identified that you have to identify what area you want to work within. So if you identify that area, it's more of a target. So say in your particular case, you want to look in more the media side, wine media, drink spirits media, something along those lines. What I consider a safety net. So for anyone who is looking for something that is perhaps in a neighboring field, it's kind of your basis that protects you from bad economies. It protects you from a stagnant job market, and allows you to be much more geographically flexible. So, for example, within your particular field, because your master's course is a little bit broader than just, say, the media side of things, you're actually preparing yourself fairly well to have a good safety net. So if you wanted to go into the marketing side of things, you might have a compelling case for that. So within your particular area, you want to identify where do you want your target to be and your safety net. When you identify your targets, that's going to be your primary area of focus. But it's important that you identify your safety nets as well, because these are areas that you want to become secondary knowledge to you. You want them to be something that you think is interesting, something that where you could see yourself, but at the same time you want to make sure that these are in place so then when you get into a space where you're looking for work that you have more flexibility. So for example, another possibility for a safety net for you would be if you're looking at the media side, would you be willing to do something outside the wine and spirits industry? Would you want to do something that is perhaps a broader safety net in terms of just being on the media side? So whether you want it to be more social media, whether you want it to be traditional print publications, web publications, things like that. So when you identify your targets and safety nets, be broad with the safety nets and more specific with the targets. And welcome to Kieran, who just joined us. So I just want to let you know to feel free to use the chat window as we're going along, and to have maybe a Word doc open or something where you get to answer these questions yourself. So within the chat window, you can ask any questions that you think. I may pose a few questions to you specifically, and I'll make sure to mention that these are questions for the chat window. But I want you to maybe on the side, either in a piece of paper or a Word document, to answer these questions because they will become very relevant for what you will do next. So to go on to the third element, and this PowerPoint will actually become available through the EMA website. So if you missed the first one, you're absolutely fine. You haven't missed too much. The third one is what valued currency, so this could be education, training, experience, personality traits, and skills are needed in order to get to your next two steps. So let me explain this a little bit further. I use the notion of currency because within a particular field, you want something that is valuable to prospective employers. So I use the sense of currency because, you know, I can have, say, in my instance, US dollars and try to, say, go to Canada, drive up north 8 hours from where I am, and try to use my money there, but it's not necessarily the valued currency that's there. They would have to have the inconvenience of exchanging it. Do they want to take that? Especially if it's something of low value that I'm trying to buy, say, a pack of gum, that they might not want to take my money because it's not worth exchanging for them. So I use this analogy because when you're working with a potential employer and thinking about potential employers, you have to realize what their currency is. And I'll give you an example of my own life once I explain the question. So again, this is education, training, experience, personality traits, skills. And when I emphasize the next two steps, I think it's always easy to visualize, okay, what do you want to do next? So say if you're a master's student right now, it's easy to think about, well, what job do I want to apply for once I'm done and graduated with this program? Sometimes it's not always that easy, but it's a little bit easier to conceptualize where you want to go immediately afterwards. But you also want to think about your next step after that, because this webinar is about moving ahead 3 years and 1 year, you have to start thinking about the longer term. So you have to think about 3 to 5 years out rather than just your immediate next step. So within my own experience, I'll give you an example. So whenever I talk with other people, I'm someone that is within the higher education field. So I work in both administrative and teaching capacities at universities. So whenever I have done volunteer work, say I'm currently doing a project with UN volunteers that is essentially being a designer for them for their curriculum that will be delivered to all of their incoming trainees and people that are going out on field placements, and any volunteers that the UN Volunteers Agency is going to oversee. So I mentioned this project to someone who's in the business world, and I kind of got a roll of eyes, and I realized that within my realm of education, this is probably something that's a valued currency. It's something that we can see it's in educational development. It's within an agency that has a high value to them. But when I was speaking to someone who's in the training and development field within businesses, the fact that it was unpaid work, the fact that it was particularly with the UN and not a commercial business, was not something of good currency to them. So it's important to think and to kind of test through some of these currencies. You might not necessarily know them right now, but if you have the opportunity to speak with people in your field, whether you have people visit your program, you can ask them these questions, or if you do informational interviews, so you go out to employers and ask them questions, that's a great way to identify what valued currencies there are out there in your field. So the next one is to survey your network. And this is very important. So if you say, for example, go on LinkedIn, you'll see your full entire network that is available on LinkedIn. And there are 3 different types of people that I want you to look out for. So we have recommenders, mentors, and advocates. And we specifically want to focus in on your field because if you've had previous job experience or research experience that is not necessarily applicable to your field, it's not as strong of a connection, especially if you don't wish to go into that area. But when you proceed forward, you want to start categorizing people within these groups because these are all very highly needed within your career. So when we talk about recommenders, we don't necessarily mean someone who's actively recommended you or provided, say, a LinkedIn reference about your performance. These are people that are potentially recommenders for you in the future. So in other terms, they could be a referee. So someone who you will give a potential employer as someone who can vouch for your experience and potential within the field. The next one, mentors, is kind of one step deeper. It's someone who will both recommend you and be able to well advise you in your next steps. So mentors can be people that you can respect their advice and at the same time you feel comfortable asking them questions that will help guide throughout the career. So recommenders are not necessarily mentors, but mentors are certainly recommenders. So if you have someone who's mentoring you, hopefully it will be someone that can also recommend you, and oftentimes if you get a mentor who is someone that you're less familiar with or someone that you've not worked with before, a mentor can be separate from a recommender. So hopefully that distinction is clear. When we get to advocates, this is probably the rarest type of person you can find within your network. Advocates are people who will go out of their way to promote you. And not promote you within a job, but to tell people how wonderful you are. So advocates are people that will recommend you. They're people that know you fairly well, so they might be a mentor, but an advocate is really someone who is going to go out of their way to make sure that you have that driving force in your career. It's very rare to get an advocate, but when you see someone who has the potential and someone who believes in you, it's always important to take advantage of that relationship and to really foster the relationship and develop it as much as you can. So again, if you have someone who's very enthusiastic about you as a potential either employee or participant within their field, hold on to them very tightly because advocates are rare and you want to make sure that that relationship is strong. So again, you need each of these categories. So you need people that you can ask for recommendations. You need people that will be mentors to you so you can feel like you have guidance throughout your career, and you need advocates. Advocates, again, aren't that common, so you need them in order to progress on, and they could be a potential boss. They could be someone that is a close professor to you, but again, these are people that go out of their way, so don't expect to have too many within your network, but if you can make sure to try to foster relationships with 1 or 2, that can help advance you a lot faster than you would otherwise. Okay, so this question is, what value do you currently offer those at and above your current level? So instead of thinking of what can your network do for you, this is more of what can you do for your network. So when you develop these relationships with potential recommenders, mentors, and advocates, they also want to see what are they going to benefit from if they become, friendly with you. What benefits are they going to experience if they advocate for you? So what do you offer these people? Is it friendship? Is it something where you've worked for them and you had a lot of value within their own development? So you have to think about what value you offer other people. And I say at and above your level because particularly if you're a bit younger, it's always important to develop mentoring relationships with those younger than you. But in terms of career advancement, at this stage, you want to work with people who are your colleagues or equals or people that are currently above your level. When you get to a stage of your career when you're much more stable, that's a perfect time to reach out to mentors so you can kind of give back. But at this stage, it's important to look at those above you who can potentially advance your career, as well as those who are working at your current level, because these are people that will soon rise up and be potential colleagues, potential contacts for mutual business. Feedback. Ah, um, it's not necessarily only feedback. It's a good question, Miao. I think it's important in terms of value. It's a very general statement, but it's something that when you have a relationship, say with someone who's a mentor. So say you had a professor in your bachelor's course that you were very close with and frequently gave you advice, and you felt was someone that you could ask questions to, and you had a great relationship in that sense. When you add value to something, years later, you can occasionally send them an email and say, here's an update in my life. I just wanted to tell you again that I really value our friendship, and I hope that everything's going well with you and your family. So that potential value to them is just more so, reiterating how you value them. So it can be feedback. You can see it as feedback, but at the same time, it's more the relationship side. Are you supportive of them back? Are you someone who potentially offers to volunteer for them, or is it something that you make them feel good? Meaning, like for example, extended relationship, yeah, network, yep, absolutely. So what kind of value do you give to them? Like for example, in this particular instance with the, say, professor, you can make them feel like they have a very successful career mentoring students. So absolutely, within your extended relationship network, you want to think about the value that you add. Are you someone that helps, so if we're talking about people at the same level, is it someone that you're connected to, that you're always the person posting news stories within your industry? So are you someone helping them grow? Or are you someone that's supportive? So again, value can mean different things in different contexts, but absolutely, I think this is something that you want to think about your network, and you want to think about what value you're offering people back, as well as what they're offering you. Okay, so this next question is, what potential do I have that differentiates my, well, this is a little bit confusing. Sorry, I phrased this funny. So what potential value or qualities do you have that differentiate you from other applicants within the field? So what makes you unique? Especially if you're in a master's program, you're surrounded by people that are interested in the same thing, the same field. So within your particular course of viticulture and wine marketing, spirits marketing, things like that, these might be general areas, so maybe they're not all interested in the media side of things, but at the same time, you want to start thinking about these people as potential competition, potential colleagues, and you want to think about what makes you different. Are you someone that is more assertive, someone that goes out and makes sure to develop relationships and get more business for potential clients? Are you someone that has great people skills, someone that has, say, excellent math skills? So these are things that you want to think about, your skills, your personality, your education, your background, and just things that you can contribute to a potential employer that makes you different than other applicants. So this may seem like a silly question, but to understand what your hobbies and interests are is actually a very valuable lesson. And I'll give an example that happened within my lifetime. So I was a little bit odd in the sense that I was very invested in my career early on. So even at the age of 22, I would frequently look up people within my field and look at what their backgrounds were, and I would move towards what that background is. So if I noticed that they were someone that had extensive experience abroad, that they had both studied and worked abroad, I made that one of my goals. If it was someone that I noticed had research experience, I tried to get that research experience. So if you focus too much on being prepared to be employed, you will miss out on a lot of life. And this is of interest to employers as well. So when thinking about your hobbies and your interests, employers want to see that you have that balance in your life, that you have, that you are an interesting person, that you're good to be around. And employers hire people who they like and who they get along with and who they feel is a person that they want to be more like. So when you have hobbies and interests, these are things that really develop you as a person. They make you interesting and they make you human. So when you interview, oftentimes the hiring committee might ask you, what do you do for fun? What do you do on the weekend? They want to see that you have that balance within your life and that you are an interesting person and someone that they think that the rest of their office would like. So again, it's important to think about your hobbies and interests and to make sure that you connect with them throughout your career. So how is my current CV, resume, cover letter, and web presence showing both my good qualities and potential? So I ask this because oftentimes when we're talking about advancing the career in such a short amount of time, people immediately start with the CV, the resume, the cover letter, the web presence. They start developing these immediately. And I often found that it's more helpful to do the opposite, to think about your networks of people that you know, to think about the skills and valuable currency that you're offering potential people, and then to put it on your current CV or cover letter. So you want to front load and think about the importance of people and the importance of skills that you bring to the table, and then get everything to align. Now, obviously, if you don't have a well-formatted CV, or if your cover letter is way too long and people aren't going to read it, or your web presence doesn't show how dynamic you are and how engaged within your field that you are, these are things that will hurt you in the long run, but they shouldn't be front-loading your whole strategy. So when we're talking about, say, for example, developing a good web presence, I think we've all known people that have a really great web presence. They always post on social media. They're always someone that is reposting news ads and news stories and relevant industry talk. And I think that oftentimes this web presence is great, but then you look at what they're actually doing, and that's what they're doing. So they're spending their time developing a presence, but not necessarily the background that they need in order to get the job. So again, think about the people and the skills before you think about how you market those skills in your networks. So now what? So this is the vital question. So now that you've gone through this exercise of identifying and answering these 8 questions, you now have to ask yourself, okay, so how do I formulate this into a strategy that gets me 3 years ahead in only 1 year? So things to think about. When we talked about the people and skills and how you market yourself, these are 3 different pathways to really accomplish this quickly. So again, I would emphasize the currency especially. So within my particular field, the reason why I was getting a lot of feedback from hiring managers about being well beyond my years is because I was in a space that I was getting a lot of experience in a short amount of time. So once you find what area you want to go into, the kind of target area and the safety net areas, you want to develop the currencies that make you valuable within these spaces. And you want to develop relationships with people within these spaces that can really move you ahead. So between getting the experience, whether it's volunteer experience, research experience, perhaps taking on a part-time job, maybe doing a short-term project that is more in a consulting realm, these are small things that you can do that will really advance you throughout your career that gives you currency. But again, spend your time on things that are valuable to prospective employers and people within your field. You don't necessarily want to do volunteer work that prospective employers are not as interested in unless it gives you personal value. So again, if you want to volunteer and you feel like that's an interest or hobby, that's something that makes you interesting. If it's volunteer work that you're just kind of going through the motions and not really happy with, and it's not a value to either you or a prospective employer, you're not really doing anyone a favor by spending your time that way. It would be better to spend time doing either something that you find fun or something that will really advance you throughout your career. So this is really the end of the presentation, and I wanted to make sure that I led for ample time to make sure it was something that if you had any questions that were specific to your particular circumstance, or if it was something that you wanted to kind of talk out, or if you had any questions about the presentation or just on the topic in general, I'm happy to answer anything. So within the chat window, feel free to ask any questions. I'm happy to stay as long as you want to, or if you have to go, that's perfectly fine as well. So this presentation will be available on the EMA website in the following week. So if you have the need to reference one of these questions, or if you didn't get to write down your responses, or if you joined us late, this is something that you can reference in the future, that you can look at and really use it as a reflecting tool. So again, I want to make sure that that everyone has time to ask questions if you want. Uh, yeah, I'm sorry that the technology didn't keep up. There's only one slide after that. It gave my contact details. So what I'll do is I'll type them within the chat window. That was actually the second to last slide, so you're not too far behind. But I know that you had asked for my email before, so I'll give you my email address, which goes directly to my personal email. And I'll give you my LinkedIn page as well, because I'm always happy to connect with other fellow EMA members. So yes, I've given, within the chat window, I've given my email address and my LinkedIn page. So feel free to connect with me, send me emails. And again, if you want to look at this exercise when it goes up on the EMA website and reflect on what what the process is for you, feel free to send me an email. Give me a few days to respond, because this month is particularly busy, but I am so happy to help if it's something that you really need reflection on. So wonderful. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to type them in the chat window, and I'll be available for the next 5 minutes. I'll just stay logged in. But if you don't have any questions, it was nice having you here, and I hope you have a good day. And what I will do now is just wave at you bye. See, I promised it would be light out. So hopefully you're able to see that it is now 6:40-ish a.m. here in the States. So we're just now getting the morning sun kind of out. So again, it was nice meeting you, and thank you for joining me.